Drum roll, please. Ta-da! Hello, everyone, and welcome to Monday Night Madness, part two of a three-part series about fertility, virility, and sexual health. Karen,
You
my
sounded
host,
so
and
formal.
I are so pleased to have you with us as we delve into part two, which is all about men's health. So last Monday, we spoke about fertility, which is the female side of the equation, and virility is all about men. Now, I want to first acknowledge that we are not
Men.
and I do love it when you have genders teaching their own gender about health. So I'm just first making that acknowledgement that before we began today, we sent some prayers up that our message would be received and that we could deliver it as good as possible, because I just acknowledged that we are not men, but we love men so much. And a lot of the physiological principles that apply to women actually also apply to men. And yeah, we just can't wait to share with you everything that we've learned from our own practices, as well as from the wonderful doctors and male practitioners who have taught us over the years.
And I definitely have helped a lot of couples not only get pregnant, but enjoy getting pregnant again. So libido, a lot of erectile dysfunction, like it can be weeks and you're back to where you were. So this is something that, because I've had so much experience, I'm definitely not intimidated talking about. We're going to throw a lot of information out there. Denise, would you mind on our blog on Holistic Health Educators, if you type in Dr. Andrew, I did a presentation with him a couple years ago, and there's a man. You can put the link in there. And so if anybody wants to listen to that afterwards, it is Dr. Andrew, who is a specialist in P shots, and he does a lot with different frequency therapy as well. And he and I have spoken together many, many times on stage. And we have definitely talked a lot about men and women's health because he does specialize that. He has a couple different offices. So you could throw that in there if you guys want another link as well. And those of you in the Human Body Master Guide, we have a lot of information in there as well. So last week we talked about fertility. So we talked about women, and that is on the blog. And tonight we're really going to kind of focus on male sexual issues. Number one being ED. I was blown away when I realized there were 30 million men just in America alone that had erectile dysfunction. And it's interesting because, if I had clients that were smoking, I had learned in all my studies that, well, that's going to lead to ED. So it wasn't too hard to convince smokers that they may want to stop smoking, because the end result will be their vascular health, and that would lead to erectile dysfunction. So that was kind of a easy thing. We talked about testosterone, we talked about ED. But now we have so much more hitting the male body, well, and the female body, but right now we're focusing on the men, that it's much harder. It's not just one simple thing. It's not just, well, here's what's happening to your testosterone because you're over 40 and it's binding, with your sex binding globulin. So now we need to take Nettle. It's more than that. So I have a lot of notes in front of me of things that I definitely want to cover. But I kind of want to let's talk about circulation. Let's talk about the number one cause. And the number one cause, 80% of men who have erectile dysfunction are dealing with a vascular issue. That's just period. That's just how it is. And I will tell you, one of the number one causes for that is the phone sitting in your cell and right by your testes, period, because you are literally looking at an EMF issue. And there's so much documentation on electromagnetic frequencies and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth messing with the testes. And that's why you can look for decades and decades that a lot of the policemen that were using, the guns, their radar, boom, they were all getting testicular cancer and low sperm count and et cetera, et cetera. And they actually made guards that they use now, so they're not radiating their testes. So we aren't making this up. This is very real. So if you're one of those gentlemen who your phone's always in your pocket, and we're going to talk, and I'll kind of cover what we're going to talk about, and then we'll jump in there. We'll talk about vascular issues. We can talk about circulation and things you can take and things you can do. And I've got a pretty secure set of things to do that I've instructed all the men I ever work with, and it seems to work every single time. So I feel really good about that. But I also want to talk about sperm because they're so cute. They're just amazing. We don't know how amazing the human body is. We just keep learning it all the time. We're talking about we're Monday Night Madness. We can talk about crazy things here, right?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have something to say about this too. So you go right ahead.
You just take off the
Well, I recently learned that it's not the first sperm to reach the egg
No,
that determines
it is not
which sperm comes together with the egg. The egg
Mhm.
chooses. So you can have a lot of little sperm that made their way there and they're hanging out the outside and the egg selects the sperm. I thought that was very cool.
Literally between 15 million and 200, some estimates are now over 300 million sperm are ejaculated, right? And then of course, a bunch of them die right when they get there because it's so acidic, but then it alkalizes, the vaginal cavity alkalizes, but then like half of them go up the wrong way because there's, two fallopian tubes and half of them go the wrong way and half of them go the right way. And by the time they get to the egg, there's maybe 200 of them that are living. And guess what? We have had such an issue with sperm health. Oh, these guys, like they used to be boom, right? And they just pop right in that egg and boom, immediately it closes. And we've got our chromosome action going on. And we were one cell for a minute, second, and now we're 2 and 4 and 6 or 8. But what's happening now is like the sperm are like, bonk, like they aren't even strong enough, like on the door, right? They can't even get in the egg because they can't penetrate. So infertility is not just, oh, the sperm don't get there. It's because they're weak. And you have some weak sperm hanging out there all the time. What kind of baby is that going to make in the first place when it can't even get into the egg, or the tail is misshapen? And there's a lot of issues that men can deal with when it comes to health. And so we're excited to talk about a lot of this tonight. My sweet husband, Greg's going to come on towards the end because he was a special investigator in the military. So he was a secret agent guy. So I always sing him that song, Secret Agent Man. But anyhow, he has worked a lot with, pornography. He's seen everything that you don't ever want to see. But he also has done a lot of study and research when working with all of these people. And he's going to share a couple things that I never thought of. I never even thought about it. And so when I was discussing with Greg what we were talking about, he's like, well, have you considered talking about this also? And I'm like, no, because like I didn't realize that is what was happening. So we're going to bring that in later. So that's kind of the setup I wanted to kind of throw out there. Is that
Amazing.
cool?
Yeah, I love that you prefaced it with the fact that this used to be a simpler thing.
Simple.
But now there really is like a war on hormones going on from all of our
Mhm.
environmental exposures and just our 21st century lifestyle. It's very interesting. You have to live counterculture to not be sick in our society. Like I'm just saying, like it's no longer that like there's a baseline level of health, and then if you want to do the healthy things, you get super healthy, and if you don't want to do the healthy things, then you'll just stay mediocre. It's not that. Like we really are at a point in just where we've developed in humanity to the point where like you have to be literally swimming against the current. You have to be counterculture to not just be well, but also to not be sick. So I'm happy you gave that acknowledgement that there's a lot going into it today. So we have so much to share that Karen's going to jump into, and I wanted to start off with a really quick anatomy and physiology lesson for you so that you can have this picture.
We need like
painted in your
chimes
mind.
or
I know.
something every time you say that.
I know. Dun, 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 dun.
Okay.
We'll have fancy side music effects.
Charlie, we want side effects. Okay.
Yes. So this is really good for you guys to remember because it's actually the same thing in women and men. These hormones stimulate different things in women and men. I'm on the quiet side tonight. Never. Can you hear me better now? Maybe I just need to speak up.
There you go.
Oh my gosh.
Now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Louder.
Can you hear me better now? Thank you. Oh my gosh. I was almost quiet for a minute. I wouldn't have slept
Write
tonight.
this day down in history.
Okay, that was horrifying. Okay, so here's how it works, guys. Many of you know several of the hormone pathways in your body interact with multiple glands before the end result happens in your body, and we call that an axis. So it starts in A, and then it goes to point B, and then it goes to point C. So it starts in the hypothalamus, which produces GnRH, which is gonadotropin releasing hormone. You don't have to remember the long word. It just means it's releasing a hormone that's going to stimulate your gonads, which are your sex glands. So you have your hypothalamus produces GnRH, and that comes down to the pituitary, which is right underneath of it. This is in your head still. And the pituitary then releases two things: FSH, which is follicle stimulating hormone, and LH, which is luteinizing hormone. So you can just write those two things down: FSH and LH, and that's released by your pituitary. Now, in women, FSH stimulates the ovaries to release the egg, and the LH stimulates the ovaries to produce estrogen, right? And in men, FSH comes down to the testes and tells the testes to produce sperm. And the LH tells the testes to produce testosterone. So just real quick recap. You have your hypothalamus that secretes GnRH. That comes down to the pituitary, which is then going to produce two hormones, luteinizing hormone, LH, and follicle stimulating hormone, FSH. If it's a woman, that tells the ovaries to release an egg and produce estrogen. And if it's a man, it comes down to the testes and tells the testes to create sperm and produce testosterone. So do you see how that's like a perfect mirror to each other, how those hormones work? It's beautiful. Now, let's just dial in on men right now. When that testosterone level rises, guess what? That comes back to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is monitoring it. And when testosterone levels are high enough, the hypothalamus goes, oh, okay, we don't need any more GnRH. So it doesn't produce any more GnRH until testosterone levels drop. So this is why supplementing with oral testosterone or taking testosterone injections decreases sperm count and decreases localized production of testosterone in the testes. Because if someone's body is getting testosterone from an outside source, the hypothalamus is never triggered to produce more GnRH, which then never triggers the pituitary to release LH and FSH, which never tells the testes to produce semen and testosterone. Now, your testes need way more testosterone than the rest of the cells in your body by a long shot. So if someone's taking a testosterone injection or a testosterone supplement, such a small fraction of that is ever going to reach the testes. It's going to give the testes like less than a tenth of what it actually needs to do its job. So that's why, you get lower sex drive, less erections, less sperm production and semen production, and less and poor testes health in men who are supplementing with testosterone. And that is a precursor to testicular diseases. So that's just a little biological explanation of why testosterone supplementation and injection can interfere with the body's natural process of it. And that's why we are really excited to go through this list of how to boost testosterone naturally, because there are ways to boost testosterone naturally, even in people who are, 60, 70 years old and beyond. So that is a cool part, that this can actually get turned around at any point. It's not like menopause. Now, the rate of production does naturally start to decrease, but cool. We can jump into it. Charlie's ready.
Since we're talking about drugs, let's just talk about two more. Statin drugs. Like, oh my
Right.
word, we don't want to lower our cholesterol if we're trying to increase our hormone health, because what do the hormones rely on? They rely on cholesterol. Cholesterol is needed for each of those hormones that Amy mentioned, because that is what is carrying them. That is what driving them. So when we go on to it, so you'll find many times people that are on statin drugs, they lower many of their sex hormones, not just testosterone. And women, please remember, many women are testosterone deficient. I have been finding more and more every year of my clients that actually are testosterone deficient. This isn't just for the men anymore. You're putting your phones in your pockets. You're exposed to the same Wi-Fi. These are things that are happening all around the globe. So it's not just, don't think you're out of the bucket because you're testosterone deficient. If you're low in sex drive, you're low in libido, you are having a hard time orgasm, it may be that you are lower in testosterone. So just kind of put that little nugget on the side there. The other drug I wanted to talk was antidepressants. So antidepressants also are hard.
Sorry, you're good.
You just keep talking. Are you okay?
I know. I just realized something.
You've said the wrong hormone.
So sorry. Luteinizing hormone triggers the production of progesterone, not estrogen. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you.
But progesterone also needs cholesterol. So there we are. So anyhow, and so antidepressants are the same thing. So antidepressants are very hard on the body, and they will stop testosterone production and interfere with hormones. So these are just a couple of drugs that are out there that, you might be taking antidepressants because you're having a bad sex life, when actually it's going to be making it worse. So now that we got some of those things out of the way, I just also want to mention, this is for your 20-year-olds and your 30-year-olds. I have had plenty of 20-year-olds sitting in my chair who cannot have erections anymore. They're having a very hard time, and they're 20 and 30 years old. Are you kidding? Right? Some of them, because laptops have been around that long now, they've been living with a laptop on their lap their whole life. So now we're looking at very deficient in testes that have not developed appropriately. And the answers are yes. The body is ready and wanting to procreate. The number one thing your body is doing is making and preserving eggs and sperm, because all it matters is that you pass those on and you create more life. And so your body does work very hard to make sure that you can create more life. So a lot of things we're going to talk about right now. I want to mention, if you're over 40, there's a particular thing that happens with your testosterone, and it'll get bound. So you have free testosterone, and then you can have bound testosterone, just like you can have free T4 and bound T4 and free T3 and bound T3. We'd have a whole little song about that. Oh, I bounced on my ball. But anyhow, so some things are bound, and testosterone gets bound with a sex binding globulin. And so you can release that just simply by taking Nettle. You can drink Nettle tea, you can take Nettle supplementation, you can get Nettle tincture, but Nettles are phenomenal. And I've had doctors literally read my book, read the sex chapter. A lot of people go to that right away, and they start taking Nettles and one of them lost 40 pounds in a month and a half. 40 pounds. He didn't do anything else. He was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea, because your testosterone is going to help you lose weight, right? It's going to help you build muscle mass. Testosterone is needed for many of the systems of our body. Anyhow, so that's something I wanted to mention right off the bat. I'm going to now let's go back to cardiovascular and vascular issues. That's really important, because vascular issues are something we talk about all the time. Heart health is a huge thing. And I'll mention the 4 things for heart health that I always do, because it can help with ED as well. Magnesium to relax the muscles, right? And we are using a lot of muscles to circulate the blood. CoQ10, your body makes CoQ10, but some people may not be making enough on it. So you can run some tests. You can do your testing on yourself, or just get some good ubiquinol. Ubiquinol is the only form of CoQ10 that we recommend. So ubiquinol and hawthorn berry. Hawthorn berry is phenomenal for the heart. Now, those are addressing the heart. We have to look at a vascular issue in that your heart might be pumping, but you may be having plaque building up in the penis. You might be having plaque build up in the veins, right? You might be getting spider veins and varicose veins. All sorts of things can happen in women, but that kind of is affecting the men as well. And so we need to look at how can we remove some of that plaque that's building up in the body. So again, the first thing I talk about when I talk about detoxification, the number one way to detoxify the body is stop putting toxins in. The number one way to start removing plaque out of the body is stop eating plaque-forming food. Now, I would like to take a deep dive here just for a couple minutes, because I love talking about this stuff. Understanding where plaque comes from, and then understanding what pulls it out of the body. When you visualize this, it's like, aha, right? So if you have a blood vessel, ta-da, right? And along in that blood vessel is flowing, everything you eat goes into your blood. So your potato chips and your corn dogs and your meats and your dairies and your pizzas and your fruit smoothies once in a while, and maybe every day or once in a while you have a piece of lettuce, right? All that goes through here. And so what'll happen is some of the agitating foods, free radical damage, that is actually, they're like, and even crystals in foods, right, osculates, they'll start affecting and breaking down and just causing little infractions in the blood vessel lining, which isn't normally a big deal, because the body's going to send out, a little bit of covering to like seal that off a bit. But if we keep eating foods that are very distractive and destructive to that, that lining, the body's going to start sending more and more plaque out. So we start building plaque on both sides of the blood vessels. Just real easy. This is what a collateral is when the blood is squirting, and it's getting thinner and thinner and thinner and harder to get around, the body will build a collateral to bypass it and just keep going. So it realizes the blood's not flowing through here much longer. So it'll literally create its own bypass system to go around that. So it's very simple, right? The body's amazing. Oh my gosh, love it. Where's my, that was easy button? Anyhow, it's somewhere. Oh my gosh, I misplaced it. Oh, it's in here. Okay, there we go. I hope his batteries. It's not working. So,
Okay, we'll work on it. We'll work on it.
Fine.
Please hold.
Fine. Thank you. Anyhow, so the number one way to remove plaque is fiber. It is that simple. It is that simple. It is literally that simple. Changing a person's diet will drastically reduce plaque when there is a lot of fiber added to that diet. It's just natural. I've seen ultrasounds upon ultrasounds of someone who has heavy plaque. They go to a vegetarian diet with
or Mediterranean.
Mediterranean diet with a load
great
of
one.
vegetables, and it's pulling it right out.
Right.
It is amazing to see. So just in the back of your mind, we can be looking at products we can be taking. I haven't even started on my notes yet, but these are things just to kind of visualize. Exercise is going to be cleaning out and moving the blood. Plus, exercise induces testosterone buildup. Sex induces testosterone. The more sex you actually have, the higher your testosterone levels can become. So this is just another reason, even though you might be discouraged because you have this ED, you're still going to love being together, and that's what you need to focus on. Performance anxiety is a big thing. We can talk about that briefly, but performance anxiety is something because if you aren't able to orgasm, if you aren't able to ejaculate, man or a woman having an orgasm, you're going to be worried the next time you get in bed, right? You're going to be worried the next time that your sweetheart's like, hey, baby. And so those are things we can talk about maybe in another session, but those are things you can definitely address with different, emotional therapies, right? And different, PTSD, things for PTSD. There's a lot, but PTSD plays a very big role in ED. Just want to kind of throw some of that out there. And then the sauna. I definitely want to promote the sauna. The sauna is an incredible way to circulate blood and to help break down some of the plaque. It's phenomenal for circulation, phenomenal. And remember, vascular dilation, 80% of all men are dealing with that. And it can help to get the hormones where they need to be, period. So anyhow, anything you want to jump in there before I start rolling off again?
I'm just having your back on the exercise one because the exercise is not only incredible for stimulating testosterone production, but also human growth hormone. And human growth hormone works very similar in testosterone to help the body prioritize building muscle mass and using fat for fuel, because it gives the body the impression, oh, we're building stuff. Like, we don't need to store energy. We need to burn it and build. So just to put this in a frame of reference, I don't know what testosterone therapies cost these days, but I do know that like human growth hormone injections can be like up to $1,000 a month. I'm sure testosterone, depending on what type of therapy you're doing, can be way up there too. So next time you really are not feeling like exercising, just think about the financial equivalent of exercise. I mean, honestly, even if, let's just do the math on this really quick. Let's say exercise is giving you about $2,000 of hormone therapy for free a month. Okay. And let's say you exercise, I don't know, 3 times a week.
Sounds good.
All right. So we're talking, let's say that ends up being, add in the half week, 13. If you do 13 exercises a month, guys, that's $150 a session that you are earning. Like, imagine getting paid $150 an hour to exercise. Would you exercise for $150 an hour? I don't know. That's one way to look at it. I'm gonna start looking at it like that, actually.
You just go right ahead, honey.
Getting girl math for the win. That's right. That's what you're getting in hormone therapy when we take that time to move our body. So
I love it. I love it. Love it. Okay. I'm going to grab some of my note stuff now.
Yeah, go for it. Here.
So nitrates, no nitrates. Processed meat is huge in causing testosterone deficiency and erectile dysfunction, period. So no nitrates, no processed foods. My men that I'm working with the ED, I get them off of most meat. They can eat clean beef once in a while, but that's still a once in a while. A little bit more poultry or fish would be good. But like when they're cleaning up the body, those first couple of months, we are very regimented on what they're eating. And there's absolutely no sausage, no nitrates, no pork. That kind of stuff is just out disease. And just remember, heart disease, testosterone deficiency and heart disease literally go back and forth one to another. They both cause each other and they're both effects of each other. Right. So if you have heart disease, you probably are dealing with some testosterone deficiency. If you have testosterone deficiency, you may be dealing with some heart issues. So just don't ignore that, because this is your life and your heart. I just want to throw that out there. During sleep, you are building testosterone. So if you're one of those night owls who's like, oh yeah, I can stay up until 11 or 12 and I can get up at 5 in the morning. If you're looking to build testosterone levels back up, female or male, you do want to make sure you're getting more sleep, right? Very important. Avoiding alcohol and avoiding caffeine. Both of those are very disruptive to testosterone production. And birth control. Hello, birth control. Like, I never understood this. So birth control messes up your hormones, period. That's what it's literally designed to stop your body body from making specific hormones. And so some of that libido is, and what that's like the number one side effect of birth control is low libido, right? They have a low libido. And why is that? So it's because that is what it's designed to do. So just bringing the awareness to some of the drugs that can be causing these issues.
And why you would want to filter the water.
Yes.
Because the men aren't taking oral birth control, but they have
They're
found
drinking it.
They have found it in the water supply. So another reason to filter the water that you're drinking.
Be careful what you're drinking for sure.
Wow.
Okay, saw palmetto, wonderful man's herb, and most of the herb blends you find for men are going to have saw palmetto because saw palmetto is also phenomenal for the urinary system of a male. And so saw palmetto, it's just a go-to man. Zinc is, as I mentioned in the email that went out today, zinc is the man's mineral. Every man you know should be taking zinc. Period. It's just or eating zinc-rich foods, which you can find on my vitamin chart, but absolutely phenomenal. Vitamin C.
I'm gonna chirp in on zinc
You
real
just
quick
chirp right in
because
there.
oh,
we gotta get a chirp.
I know that would be kind of cute. I was like, guess what? So testosterone. So all estrogen is testosterone before it's estrogen. So the it's just part of the process. Like I said, molecules build on top of each other. So zinc is actually helps to, like in men, helps to prevent. It helps keep testosterone instead of turning into estrogen. I just wanted to mention that.
Was that it?
That was it. That was a chirp. It was like
That was also a chirp. I like it. Making sure you're drinking enough water every day, right? 2 liters of water a day for most men is very, very appropriate. Decreasing calories. Some men are just overweight, and that's hard on the body. And so decreasing the calories is something you're going to hear people talk about all the time, and we mention it all the time. Heavy metals. Heavy metals play a big role in both female and male hormone levels because heavy metals will block the signals coming from the brain. That is just for the thyroid, it is just part of the endocrine system's worry because if you have any kind of heavy metal toxicity, which many people actually do right now, they do block hormone receptor sites. And so this is important. So that everybody can stand to do some kind of heavy metal detoxing. We're all exposed to it. Look how much jet fuel is pouring down on us every single, it's like 66 million billion gallons a day. It's something insane. And and so just in jet fuel, but that's not everything else that's in our body. We have a lot of toxins that we're exposed to, and heavy metals, especially when people are getting inoculated. Specific jabs have a lot of heavy metals, and those get bound in the body. So to detoxify those, you can always start on a binder. We're always talking about binders, zeolite and charcoal and bentonite clay and any kind of binder. Those are important. Remember, binders literally. Well, binders we use in the digestive system because binders are very active when you take them. So if there's chemicals, heavy metals, or things in the digestive system, not just in the small intestine, but in the large intestine as well, because there's things that get dumped into the large intestine from a while ago, and they can bind. We want to get them bound in the large intestine before it circulates back in the body. Because remember, if you don't poop it out, if you're not having regular bowel movements, you're putting all that right back in your bloodstream. That's why having 2 or 3 bowel movements a day is mandatory for you to have a healthy body. Because if you don't poop it out, it's going right back in your bloodstream, and then you're recirculating toxins. And so having those binders in the body can be very, very helpful to help remove some of that heavy metal. We'll probably do a couple sessions on binders. I think it'd be kind of cool to talk about binders sometime. I know I've planned out all of our Monday Night Madness calls for the next 3 months. We should put that list somewhere on our Monday Night Madness page. That'd be really cool, wouldn't it? Anyhow, and so that is something we will talk about as well. So, okay. I'm going to jump on there with anything. Glyphosate. Want to talk about glyphosate?
I don't know how glyphosate interacts with, and glyphosate, sorry. It's correctly pronounced both ways. I don't know how that interacts with testosterone.
It's the same way as heavy metals. It interferes with absorption. And so so does DuPont. They actually had some big lawsuits because the Teflon, and the non-stick stuff that causes infertility issues major with men and women. So just being aware of the metals that are all and the chemicals that are all around us, because they're quite something else. Anyhow, so we could talk about the P shot for a minute. Want to talk about the P shot and acoustic wave?
No.
Okay, I will.
Mom will.
So, okay.
I'll talk about intermittent fasting briefly.
Sounds great.
And my other 3 things on my list.
You want to talk about right now?
Well, just while we're still on lifestyle related things, because
it.
yours are kind of like medical interventions, aren't they?
Well, yeah, there are things that you can find someone in your area that does a P shot or the O shot. or acoustic wave therapy.
Right.
So jump.
So my other lifestyle things were, first of all, cortisol. So remember, there is good stress and bad stress.
Mhm.
You know, eustress and estress, right? It's estress, eustress, and estress. So the you want enough healthy stimulation and stress. Not all stress is bad. And interestingly enough, everyone, they did a study on people and they asked them, do you believe your stress is good for you or bad for you? And based on what people said, it had that effect in their body. So I just want to reiterate, like there is such thing as good stress and bad stress, but also the role that our perspective has on the stress we're undergoing, which is one reason why I think like religious beliefs and just belief in like a higher power can actually be so healthy for someone, is because it changes that perspective. I mean, actually, depending on what your belief is, because in the other hand of that, you have like the side of beliefs that like puts you in guilt and shame the whole time, which is not good for your health. But on the other hand, if you're like, wow, I'm being trained for like a higher purpose, or like, oh, this is teaching me so much, or like, wow, my eternal spirit is being so refined through this process. Like even that perspective shift can have such a healthy effect on how we go through stress, right? So, but one thing is certain, and that is that chronically elevated cortisol levels do decrease testosterone production, the same way that they throw off female hormones in the long run. So we don't want chronically elevated cortisol. So I was going to say to all the women out there how we can support our men in their healthy hormonal balance, on top of, you know, the good nutrition and, you know, supporting them in their activities, you know, outside, because vitamin D is also huge. If you're wondering what the three major minerals / supplements are, zinc, magnesium, and vitamin D, all amazing for testosterone production. But the other thing besides those obvious lifestyle ones would be, you know, whatever we can do to support them emotionally, to have playtime or have those things that are their hobbies that they can like de-stress if it's working on their, just whatever their hobbies are. There's like really supporting them and having that time to make for themselves, to get out of like the day to day of like, you know, working and providing or whatever it is that's stressful to them. I think that's a really great thing we can do to support them in their hormonal balance, because we might think, I mean, it is true that testosterone and human growth hormone and high intensity interval training and small bouts of cortisol is really good for like, you know, manhood and virility, but chronically stressed out levels are not helping testosterone and are also a huge contributor to erectile dysfunction.
We can't really talk about ED without talking about nitric oxide too.
Yeah.
Because nitric oxide does break apart plaque. So a lot of athletes use it to keep their arteries nice and clean, right? So nitric oxide does break apart plaque. And you can supplement with foods that encourage nitric oxide production in the body. Just be aware that L-arginine, and studies have come out on this showing that after your age of 20, it doesn't break down the same. So you might want to consider some of the other supplements that you can be taking to increase your nitric oxide. There's so much on nitric oxide all over the websites right now that's a pretty big game changer. I mentioned that before I talked about the P-shot and some of the acoustic wave therapy.
And never forget, the best way to boost nitric oxide for free is nose breathing.
Yes.
18% increase in circulating
It's up to
levels
18%? Just out there finding?
just by switching to your nose.
Wow.
Yeah. And one,
That's amazing.
yeah, never mind.
I forgot that.
I'm not going to share that other random, unrelevant,
Please share it.
weird
We
fact.
want to know.
No one wants to know.
Who wants to know? We
No,
all
it's
know.
too weird.
It's Monday Night Madness. We're all
It's-
raising their hands. They
no one's
want to
raising
know.
their hand.
Yo, don't you want
It's
to
irrelevant.
know? Yes, no, they were raising their hands. We all want to know.
It's totally unrelated, but
We don't care.
so, you know how there's like a good side and a bad side to everything? They found that the bacteria on your tongue in the morning is actually a huge nitric oxide producer for your body. And there's
Wow.
actually an argument against brushing your teeth first thing in the morning.
This is very random.
And they were like, this was at the Microbiome Labs conference down in Orlando. They were, or Miami. They were like, there's a whole group of them who started waiting to brush their teeth till after their morning workout. Cause they're like, no, I want the bacteria in my mouth to produce more nitric oxide for me while I go. So they'll like go do their workout and then brush their teeth. And I was like, you know, it's very interesting.
I'm gonna do that.
I mean, everyone agrees don't use mouthwash.
Oh my
Everyone
gosh,
agrees don't use mouthwash. But the whole thing about like what time of day to brush your teeth and like get all the white stuff off your tongue, you know, I just thought it was interesting, you know, I never
That
thought of
would have
it.
been
But you know, you think about like, you know, maybe Native American is waking up, he's not brushing his teeth before he like runs into the wilderness to do
hunt
his
a fish or get some
exactly,
berries. Or
exactly.
hunt
So I
some-
was like, well, it's viable.
hunt
It's
a
viable.
gorilla. That's right.
Yeah,
Wow.
very interesting.
Well, very cool. So I'm going to talk about two more things and then we'll bring Greg on. He is sitting in the studio audience right now. Hi, Greg. So the P-shot. So you can find, so if you're just having a very hard time with ED and you're trying everything, or if you want a quick fix, you don't want to sit there and do the whole sauna all the time and take care of the heart and take all the supplements, right? You can get what's called a series of P shots. And it's not for penis, by the way, but the P shot will actually take your platelets out of the body and spin them and put them in other areas, 5 different locations of the penis. And that will help to break down plaque. Now, if you do that, you also could be doing acoustic wave therapy. Now, I talk about biofrequency all the time, EMFs all the time. Not only are we having EMFs introduced into our body that are causing, causing cellular damage and the breakdown of testosterone and our sex glands to not work properly and the dysfunction of hormones all over the world. We're all dealing with that. But interesting enough, you can use programmed frequencies to heal the body. If you're going to break apart kidney stones, you're going to go to a hospital, and guess what? They're actually going to do electric treatments on you, right? They're going to use frequencies to break apart your kidney stones, and boom, they're gone. They break apart into a million little pieces and you urinate them out. Well, why aren't they doing that for gallbladder stones? And why aren't they doing that for the cancer? You all know why. But what I can tell you is you can go to specialists and have acoustic wave therapy done, which literally is using a bar, and they actually take it along the penis, and they're putting frequencies into the penis to break apart the plaque. And it doesn't hurt. They usually numb it, or they put a cream on the penis first, and they'll actually use that to help break apart the plaque that's building up in the penis. So if you're just excited about all this and you have a little extra money, run and get some P shots, get a series of P shots, as well as the acoustic wave therapy. Women, they do O shots. So if you're not able to orgasm, you can get a series of O shots as well. You also, it'd be interesting for you to know, when they take those platelets and they'll put them in the walls between the bladder and the vagina, and miraculously, this will thicken that wall. So if you're bouncing on a trampoline all the time and you're urinating, this actually helps to thicken that wall, because your own platelets are being spun and then put back into the body, into the places that are needed. So it's kind of like stem cell therapy, right? But it's not. But it's using your own cells and putting them where they're needed in a healthier state, so they can help you have more sensitive orgasms. Now we are actually going to talk about orgasms next week. We're going to talk about men and women and sexual activity. We're going to keep it really fun, and, you won't be uncomfortable, but it's important. There's a lot of women, there's women who definitely have had an issue with orgasms, and men who've had an issue. And also we're going to talk a lot about foreplay and how foreplay can be literally all day, your entire marriage. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful things that we're going to discuss next week as well. So even though you're in part 2 of a 3-part series, we just want you to realize that this is fun. We are not doctors. We're not medical doctors. I'm a holistic healthcare practitioner, and Amy is brilliant and has degrees and all sorts of wonderful letters after her name. But we are here to educate you. That's our drive. And if you're interested in learning more about this, please reach out to Charlie, reach out to Sarah, reach out to people that are on our calls with us all the time, because they're here to help you. We want you educated. We want you educated because you're going to get excited to tell everybody else about it. So if you're like, oh my gosh, this is super fun, I want to learn more, please join our community. We would love to have you on more of our phone calls, because we're with people 3 or 4 nights a week, and it's a lot of fun. So
I love that. That's cool to know about those options.
Well, yeah, people don't know, and it might be overwhelming to some people. You can also go and buy like Long Jack, and there's all sorts of wonderful testosterone supplements that are out there.
Long Jack,
It's called Long Jack, okay?
It's
It's
whoever
a
come up with
supplement.
the names of herbs.
It's not an herb. It's actually a combination of herbs there.
Like,
Little obvious what
Sarah,
that means. That's right.
Oh my God.
Greg, can you come on over here and talk?
Oh,
a
and
little bit
okay,
too?
while Greg's coming on, I just had to let you know, I just fact checked myself. So real quick, is it okay that I come back to the very beginning of the lecture?
Of course.
Luteinizing hormone does trigger both the production of estrogen and progesterone. Just the progesterone is following ovulation is when it triggers progesterone production. So it does produce, so LH, because I knew LH
It
does
sounded
trigger.
right.
It did. So that's why I was like,
But
then I was like, but it also produces progesterone.
Yeah.
So it does estrogen like all cycle long, but especially estrogen, progesterone following ovulation. So you can just keep it to the female sex hormones is what LH stimulates, is female sex hormones. I'm getting.
You don't gotta get off. Don't sit here. He's so tall. He can kneel or bend or squat or
I'm
something.
so tall, I'm not seeing.
There we go. So for those of you who not met my Greg, this is my Greg. Oh, I love this. Don't you love this? This is about
Men, mom, this is about men. He should have the chair.
That's okay. I'm a man. I can do it without the chair.
There we go. Okay, so tell us one of the, I don't know, we had a lot of talks about this and I liked what you shared.
Well, sometimes men are having issues, and what they don't realize is that pornography is very, very harmful to men. And I know in our culture today, they don't like to say that, and no one likes to talk about it. But pornography literally rewires a man's brain. Men are very visual, and women are like, "What do you mean by that?" And men are like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." And men are aroused by visual things. That's why there are a lot more men watching porn and addicted to porn than there are women. That's just a fact of life. Well, what happens is the viewing the pornography literally rewires a man's brain to become visually stimulated and not physically stimulated. So when he's with an actual woman, his body's not reacting because it is expecting to be visually stimulated. I've seen a study that says if a man in his 50s gets addicted to pornography, if you get him away from the pornography, it takes at least 2 months for his brain to basically reset. However, a young man who grows up on pornography, which a lot of them do, they start when they're in puberty, they have a phone, they have a laptop. If they've been doing that for years, that's their first sexual activity, and they're continuously doing it. It can take 6 months or more for their brain to get rewired to actually react to the physical touch of another human being.
Wow.
And so pornography is a very, very dangerous thing.
Wow.
And it can be the cause, oddly enough, can be the cause of erectile dysfunction.
Right.
Doesn't mean you can't get an erection, but it is dysfunction when you can't get one with a live person.
Right.
Mhm.
And so you do a little research out there, and you'll find studies, and you'll find there are some celebrities out there who have come out to talk about their addiction to pornography and how much it destroys not just their sex life, will destroy their relationships or their marriages.
Right.
Mhm.
Wow, thank you for explaining that so clearly. That was very valuable. That makes sense
I
to me
mean,
about the
'cause
difference between you're just wiring the nervous system. So if you have like visual stimulation versus physical stimulation, that would make sense that those
Mhm.
pathways would get affected. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Anything you wanted to add to this?
Yeah.
Well, I have lots of things to talk about next week.
Good.
Yeah, I'm still not sure I'm gonna be on next week.
Yeah, next
Paul.
week might just be Greg and
I
I.
might just be like an attendee, okay? So just to be clear, everyone, like I might just let these two take it away. Woo, okay, so.
And be around when Greg makes a controversial point next week.
Ooh, I wonder what it's gonna be. Are you gonna tell me?
I'm
or
not going to
no?
tell you. It's going to be a surprise.
Things are staying alive and mad at Monday Night Madness.
There we go. That's
There you
right. Thank you, sweetie.
Awesome.
Good.
Well, everyone, we sure got a lot covered tonight. And in a world where people's hormones are being attacked on all fronts, we got to bind together and help people out with their hormones. And please don't let people just someone's selling them right now that they need testosterone injections. And that is their only hope. They are being told right now that their only hope is a supplement or some external exogenous form of something. And people's bodies are so innately and incredibly designed. You can be their advocate and you can help their body become the most valuable pharmacy they will ever have on planet Earth. The human body is worth more than $1 million. You guys, I'm not exaggerating. That's not an expression. Your human body is worth more than $1 million in today's market, this is getting morbid, but anyway, but also in terms of its chemical generating capacities, it's like the biggest asset you have. Like how many of the stuff on the shelves and these medical injections your body can just create on its own when given the right support and environment and stimulation from things that are here on planet Earth already. Which is why Holistic Health Educators is part of the movement that's trying to not make holistic health some fancy, savvy, great to have thing for the top 1% of the population who can afford expensive services. We are trying to bring holistic health to the masses and help them claim what's already theirs and access free resources that literally are in their backyard. right? And that's what we get to do as holistic health practitioners, is make holistic health for everyone who has a human body and make it affordable and just give them the information and the tools and the knowledge that we wish they had from the time they were born and grew up.
Mhm.
So I'm so happy about that lesson that we got to give today and
Yeah.
just talk about how incredible and divinely our bodies are made.
Absolutely. Well, I've been able, like I said, and there's nothing better than being in the seat where you're helping someone else. So if you have, fathers and sons and people in your life, don't be afraid to talk about this just because it's about a
With
man.
consent.
Yeah, with consent, of course, but don't be afraid to talk about things and share things. And if you don't want to talk about it, just share this link, share the link on our YouTube and on our blog, because we are going to have this information there. It's always there. The blog is loaded with information, and we're doing Monday Night Madness free every Monday night, and we're having a blast. We're so excited as we start really promoting this to see what happens next. But we're so glad that you all take the time to join us live when you're able to on Monday nights, because we certainly love spending the night with you.
I
So,
almost said because
you are the master of your body.
But it's not Thursday nights.
We say
can't
that every
it.
Thursday
We
night,
can't say
so
it.
we can
It doesn't
say
apply tonight.
It
Forget
does
it.
apply.
Forget it.
Wow.
Okay.
Some of you know the Seinfeld episode. These two don't, about being master of your domain. It fits right in, but you can laugh at that on your own time.
You're the master of your domain.
Don't want to go there.
Okay. Okay, we're not gonna go there. Okay,
Joe
so.
knows. I see you
Joe's on.
smiling.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and stop recording. We'll stay on for a little bit of family time here. And thank you all for joining us tonight on Monday Night Madness.